This is Hong Kong, where East meets West, as people say. Apart from the high-rise buildings, there is another side to Hong Kong that evolves itself around the world of martial arts. This is called Dit Da medicine, literally meaning fall and hit medicine. In the crowded streets of Hong Kong, this type of treatment is quite common, although little is known of it in the West. This is the Zhao Ga Praying Mantis Kung Fu School in Hong Kong, where Grandmaster Yip Soi, head of the system, cures many people with the art of Dit Da medicine. This unique video will teach you about Dit Da medicine, including how to make Dit Da Jiao, as well as herbal poultices. And this video, this 2.5 hour video, will include the art of Dim Mak, the most confidential knowledge of the Chinese martial art. Hello, my name is Sifu Paul Whitrod. I'd like to introduce you to this video that deals with 3 subject matters of the Chinese martial arts. The first part of this video, which I consider the most important, is about Dit Da medicine. The second part of this video is about Dim Ma or Dim Yu, which deals with point striking or pressure point striking. The third part are certain Chinese Kung Fu techniques that show the application of how certain points or pressure points are hit, plus energy techniques. But the first part of this video is a very important one in the Chinese martial arts. This is Dit Da medicine. Dit Da medicine is very important to the martial arts. There are 3 types of Chinese medicine, or Chinese. There is acupuncture, there is herbalism, and there is Dit Da. Acupuncture, as you probably might well know, deals with needles. The second one, herbalism, deals with certain herbs that cures coughs and colds, perhaps eczema. And the third one, Dit Da medicine, is related to the Chinese martial arts. In actual fact, a long time ago, it was most likely that the local Kung Fu master was also the local doctor. Dit Da medicine deals with certain subjects. It deals with, for instance, curing internal injury, bruises, sprains, fractures. All these are probably the result of practicing Kung Fu as well. If you get hit, then you may suffer from an internal injury. So you must know how to fix the internal injury. But I like to start off with one most important Dit Da remedy. It's called Dit Da Jiao. Dit Da Jiao, it means fall and hit wine. This type of medicine has been translated in many different ways, such as iron palm wine, etc. And people practicing for Kung Fu for many years will use this on their hands to develop their hands to make them more stronger and firmer, etc. But in this case, we're going to work on a Dit Da medicine, and these medicines, these herbs I should say, I bought in Hong Kong not so long ago. It constitutes of 23 to 24 different herbs. These are the herbs that I bought in Hong Kong. Probably you know some of them, such as Dongui, here, Chun Gong, Tin Cha, Bak Ji. So here are all the herbs that we're going to use for the Dit Da Jiao. You will also need brandy. 8 bottles is recommended for this amount of medicine. Plus obviously you need a large jar that you need to put the herbs in and fill it up with brandy. Now obviously at the end of your screen you're going to see the formula for this. but obviously you want to know how to properly make this dit da jiao. Now, another thing I must mention, every Kung Fu master thinks that his dit da jiao is the best. Now, this one is a very good dit da jiao. It's one that I recommend someone who's been practicing Chinese martial arts and done a lot of hitting, etc. And it's good for bruises, clears up bruises very quickly. So I managed, as I say, I managed to buy these herbs in Hong Kong, and you see a film of me in Hong Kong buying these herbs. This is the herbal shop in Hong Kong where I bought all the herbs for the dit da jiao. I get all my herbs from Hong Kong, either when I go there myself to buy the herbs, or I get them through my Grand Master or my Sifu. Usually they send them over to the UK. You can be sure though that if you go to Hong Kong and you buy the herbs, you can be sure of getting all the herbs that you need, whereas in the UK you may have some difficulty because the selection is not as vast. On that day I had 3 people serving me, which is very nice. The weighing procedures in Chinese medicine is obviously, as you know, is totally different from the weighing procedures in the Western weighing procedures, I should say. In the Chinese they go by katis or funds, whereas in the West we go by ounces. But we can still substitute that for ounces of the dit da jiao at the end of this dit da jiao program. All of the herbs in Chinese medicine pertain to the particular part of the body. For instance, Qun Gong, it pertains itself to the liver, the gallbladder and the pericardium meridian, and all the other herbs have the same principle. So it's based on the bodily concept, which makes it more easy to understand. The dit da jiao formula consists of 24 different herbs, and there you can see all the herbs being laid out on the table. This is a very old traditional traditional herbal shop, unlike some of the modern herbal shops in Hong Kong today. It still retains its old traditional flavour. And there you can see all the herbs that are stocked in the shop. Okay, so you just saw me in Hong Kong buying these herbs. Now it's obviously you can buy these herbs elsewhere, and if you have a good Chinese herbal shop near your home or in one of your Chinatowns in the major cities, then you most likely can buy most of these herbs, probably all of them. As I say, you can be sure that if you're in Hong Kong, you can be sure of their freshness. So you've got that dit da jiao, the herbs, so let's go in the kitchen and see what goes on from there. Okay, so we're in the kitchen of the martial arts Kung. First you need a wok, and we put some oil in the wok. Once that's in there, let it heat it up, heat the oil. Some martial arts styles say they boil the herbs first. In this case we're actually frying the herbs first. There is a certain amount of water in alcohol anyway, so you no need to boil the herbs. So we heat the oil up in the wok, The herbs are here, and obviously we have the 8 bottles of brandy ready to quickly put into the jar. Hopefully that jar will be big enough. If not, then I'll have to use a bigger jar. Okay, so we get hold of the herbs and we fry the herbs gradually. Break up the long ones as well, especially the bak ji, because it's quite tough. Slowly fry them. Frying will also help break the herb down a little bit without losing too much of the contents in the herb. Whereas if you just boil them, you will lose a lot of contents, and so your dit da jiao won't be very strong. But frying will break it down slightly, and that keeps the contents in the herb itself. We fry the herbs for approximately 5 or 6 minutes. That's sufficient time. If you haven't got a wok, then you can use a frying pan. The thing is with a wok, it all falls to the bottom. Okay, so here's the herbs being fried. And you can tell how good this dit da jiao is going to be because it smells really good. When it's at this point, just add a little bit of salt there. And I'll explain what the salt does when we start putting the brandy in the jar. Okay, so when the dit da jiao is cooled down, just put it in the jar. Okay. Here's the dit da jiao. The salt, by the way, it helps to cure hot and cold pain. Sometimes if you do a lot of heigong, sometimes you get like hot spasms, sometimes cold spasms. This is complicated to explain, but the salt cures that. Okay, so here's the herbs in the jar. They're fried for at least 5 minutes. Then you get one of your 8 bottles of dit da jiao, wine I should say, brandy, and slowly fill it up. Okay, here's the finished product of the dit da jiao that we made. You can see already it's a very nice dark colour. This is Donggui. Use the head. Chinese angelica root. Sweet and warm, nourishes the blood. 4 parts. Chun Gong. Hemlock parsley. Pungent and warm, invigorates the circulation of blood and qi. Simai. Golden eye grass. 2 parts. Strengthens the bones and sinew, reinforces the vital energy. Bak jerk. White peony, 3 parts. Sour, bitter, relieves pain and nourishes the blood. Gui Ji, cinnamon twigs, 2 parts. To reinforce the Sap Yi Ma, or the vital Qi energies. Sao Wu, 3 parts. Bak Sat, angelica root, 2 parts. Pungent and warm, reduces the swelling, relieves pain. Tao Yan, 2 parts. Peach seed, invigorates the blood, removes blood stasis. Mok Hern, cultus root, 2 parts. Promotes the vital energy, relieves pain and dispels dampness. All of these herbs are pertain to a certain part of the body's meridian, such as the Sap Yi Ma 12 meridians. Hong Fa, safflower, 2 parts, invigorates the blood and removes bruises. Dao Zhong, Euchemonia bark, 3 parts, sweet and warm, strengthens the bones and sinews. San Dei, tuberous root, has a cooling effect, 3 parts. Gui Ji, 2 parts. Tin Cha, 2 parts. Removes bruises and relieves pain. Wong Jing, 2 parts. This is known as skullcap root, 2 parts. Yin Tong, 2 parts. This Dit Da Jiao is a warm Dit Da Jiao. It helps the circulation of the blood. Set Wu, 2 parts. Chungapa, 3 parts. Ba Kei, 3 parts. Yong Pei, 2 parts. Zhao Ma Toi, 3 parts. Sai Bo, 2 parts. 3 parts. And Du Wu, 2 parts. Pubsquin angelica root. Pungent, slightly bitter, relieves pain, anti-rheumatic. Okay, so you've seen the Dit Da Jiao formula that came up on your screen, and it wasn't uncommon for some of the Kung Fu masters to take one part of the formula to one shop and another part of the formula to another shop in order to protect the formula, their formula of the Dit Da Jiao. The next stage of this video is to come to this what we call Gao San. Now Gao San, we call Gao San, is a herbal poultice that we make for severe conditions of if you have a broken or fractured arm or leg or maybe an internal injury. So what you're going to see now is me helping Grandmaster Yip Soi in Hong Kong fixing a patient with Gao San medicine. This is Grandmaster Yip Soi preparing the herbal poultice called Gao San. Gao San consists of many different herbs. It's mixed with flour and either mixed with also egg white or alcohol or rice oil. A long time ago they used to place this on a sheet of oiled paper, but even though plastic is just as good, The Galsan has to be spread over the piece of plastic to form a square. And then placed over with the cotton gauze, and that's going to be placed on the patient. So what you see Grandmaster doing is what you're going to learn how to make or how to prepare this medicine. You use the spoon to push over the Galsan to make a complete square. Okay, so you cut the cotton gauze. He's laying it down on a bench, what we call the Shaolin bed. When I was in Hong Kong, I had to sleep on that. It's very good for the back. Okay, so you fold the over, and then you place the, and then you cut round to make a complete square. So that was the Galsan being prepared. Okay, first how to make the Galsan. First we need a piece of plastic, roughly about 8 to 10 inches long one side and 6 to 8 inches down the other side. In the olden days they used to use oiled paper, but plastic is just as good. We also need a gauze to cover the medicine that's going to be laid on the plastic. We also need some Galsan, and I will speak about this, how you can order this Galsan later. You'll also need some plain flour. You'll also need some rice oil, or you can use egg white or some suzhou or wine. So first we get the plastic and we perforate the plastic completely all over, making minute holes until the plastic is completely perforated. Place that over there. We get the Galsan. Now again, according to the injury and how big the injury is, then obviously we make the poultice more bigger. The smaller the injury, then the poultice becomes smaller. That's obvious. First we get a bowl, and we usually put 1, 2, 3 spoonfuls of Galsan. For the plain flour, again, we use 3 spoonfuls of Galsan. Then we get the rice oil and we pour this on top of the flour and the Galsan, and we mix. Okay, so when you mix the Galsan up, it should become like a ball and it shouldn't stick to the sides. Okay, so you get your piece of plastic here, you tape down all 4 corners with some sellotape, or if you have someone handy he can hold the edges, and you place the Galsan in the center of the plastic, and using the egg white, using the rice oil or the egg white, you can move the Galsan slowly over the piece of plastic. Okay, so here's the Gaosan placed in the center of the plastic. We then get the gauze, place it over the Gaosan poultice, and then we take it up from the table. Okay, well, so once you picked up the Gaosan, you cut the excess edges off that you won't need. Okay, and here's the Gaosan, and it's ready to be placed onto the patient. Okay, so now we're going to apply the Gaosan, the poultice, to a person's shoulder which he's suffered from practicing Kung Fu recently. He's been like that for the last week. First we get the Dit Da Jiao. We ought to understand also about pressure points as well, because we have to massage certain pressure point. There's a pressure point just here, which is to release the energy into the shoulder. Work your Dit Da Jiao completely all over the back of the shoulder, which is where the pain is at the moment, and do this for at least 5 minutes. Keep massaging in, making sure that the Dit Da Jiao goes thoroughly in. Okay. Right, the next part of the program is to get the Gaosan medicine. We open the medicine out. Another rule about this is that when you open the medicine out, it shouldn't be too sticky, so you should be able to open it out quite cleanly. Place the medicine on the area that's giving the problem, okay, and fold each of the 4 sides over like this, and get some tape and tape each of the 4 corners down. Okay, so here's the Gaosan placed evenly on his shoulder. From his martial arts practice, he suffered from a painful shoulder from doing wrongful practice at one time. Keep the Gaosan on for 24 hours, and while the Gaosan poultice is on, you mustn't eat any kind of citrus fruit or taking in any vinegar, because that will counteract the effectiveness of the Gaosan. So try to make sure you pay attention to that. You will not need to bandage up the Gaosan when it's on the shoulder, because it will hold it steady. There are certain bandage methods of doing Gaosan around the ribs and around other parts of the body's anatomy, but in this case, because I know that this is going to be held firmly, I will not need to use any bandages. Okay, so you see me place the Gaosan poultice on an individual from a bad shoulder injury. Now, obviously, we fix in from the outside, but we also fix from the inside, and we need to take certain herbal remedies. This one we call Sabherm. It's called Sabherm, means 10 fragrances. It is a kind of pill that we use in the Jalga Pramana system, and this pill helps to cure the injury from the inside. Now this is a mediocre kind of pill. In other words, what I mean to say by that is that it's for injuries that are serious but not that serious. Whereas if we come to another pill that we use called Chaheng, this is for more highly seriously injured, such as internal injury, and I will speak about this one later on when I'm doing the actual point striking or the Dimyut techniques. Now, when you've done the Gaosun medicine on the patient, you need to give 1 spoonful of these for each day. So in other words, each time he comes, he takes 1 spoonful, and this will help to recover from his injury from the inside. So we cure the person from the outside and also from the inside. Going back to the Gaosun, remember, keep it on for 24 hours and do not eat any kind of citrus fruit, including vinegar, etc. Because obviously, as I said earlier on, it has a counter effect against the Gaosun. Okay, so you've seen the medicine being made earlier on. Okay, but we are applying the medicine now to a different part of the body, which is the ankle. This person had a fractured ankle not so long ago. In this case, because the medicine's been already put on the ankle the day before, when he came in again, so you need to clean off the old Gaosun, and to clean that off you need Suzhou, which is a clear alcohol. It's a Chinese alcohol. And there you are, clean off the hard bits that on the foot. As you can see, the Gaosun has brought the bruise out on the ankle. Wipe away any of the hard bits. Okay, so once you've cleaned off the old Gaosun, and then you get the dit da jiao that you made earlier, or you get the dit da jiao that you may have already, and you rub in the dit da jiao into the ankle for approximately 5 minutes. As you see, the Grandmaster is rubbing the dit da jiao into the person's ankle. Use small circles to rub in while rubbing in the dit da jiao. Gaosun can be placed on any part of the body where there's a problem with the body's anatomy, such as the ankle, knee, shoulder, elbow, except of course the private parts. So rub in the dit da jiao thoroughly, and then you place the Gaosun on, and what you do, you tape the 4 edges down of the Gaosun onto the person's ankle, or wherever there's a fracture or broken bone. Use tape to tape the Gaosun down. Sometimes the medicine can cause some itchiness if it's been on if you had the Galsan on for a few days. But the way to cure this is to place honey on top of the Galsan medicine when you placed it onto the plastic.
Only one day no problem.
In this case, on the ankle, we're going to actually bandage the Galsan on because it's in an awkward place and where there's a lot of mobility because there's a lot of mobility on the foot. So we're going to bandage this round, or Grandmaster's going to bandage this round. Make sure when you bandage the ankle, you do it not too tight, but not too loose. Okay, so once you've bandaged around, then tie the last edge with a piece of tape. So this is how now you know how to make the Galsan and how to place it onto the person's body wherever there's an injury. And when doing the ankle, use a long piece of tape to put round the heel so the bandage doesn't come loose. These are the different bandages methods used in Dita. Okay, now you've made your Dita Jiao. Dita Jiao has many purposes, and one of the other purposes is for the Ditsa Zheng, or iron palm. Make sure that you rub in the Dita Jiao into the tiger's mouth point, as well as the small intestine point number 8 on the palms, and also the Picardian point on the inside, the palm, in the center of the palm. Rub it thoroughly in. When training in iron palm, make sure you stand with your legs wide open in order to let the free flow of vital energy go through the whole body. Calm your mind. Stand in a wide stance and practice the iron palm. Breathe evenly when doing the Ditsa Zheng. In the Jalgar Premanis we have many different methods. One of these methods is with the bag, and the other methods consist of practicing with a partner. This is the method, practicing with a partner. Turning over your hand and striking. This is striking the backhand. And this is me training with my Sifu Ip Chi Gong in Hong Kong. This is called Tak Zheng, again strengthening the backhand. And the single technique continuously. All these to develop the Dit Sa Zheng or iron palm. Even though you're practicing Chinese martial arts, don't forget your basic training. This is conditioning exercises such as the building up your power and the strength. One exercise we have in the Manner system called Tai Zao to develop your Gong Lik power, as well as the ultimate power called Geng Geng or Geng Tang Geng. Welcome to the second chapter of this video, the Dit Da in Dim Yut video. Now I'm going to introduce you to the pressure points of the body, namely the most confidential knowledge of the Chinese martial arts is the Dim Ma or the Dim Yut. Now please, under no circumstances, do not try these pressure points on anybody. We accept no responsibility for use or misuse of this knowledge. But what does Dim Ma or Dim Yut mean? Firstly, Dim means to do this. This is what Dim means. Whereas Ma is the energy that runs throughout the Sab-Yi Ma, the 12 energies that run throughout the body. To strike those, or Dim Yut means to strike the point. Yut can mean point or cavity. Now this is the reason why it was called the most confidential knowledge of the Chinese martial arts, because it was the most highest potential of learning in the Chinese martial arts, and most masters would not even attempt to pass this knowledge on to any of their students unless they've been with them for so many years. I've been very lucky to have this knowledge passed on to me by my master, Ip Chi Gong, and my grandmaster, Ip Soi, who reside in Hong Kong. What I'm actually going to do is actually going to show you these pressure points. Now there are basic pressure points, and these basic pressure points you may have seen in the martial arts such as Aikido and Karate, where they deal with joint pressure points, tendon pressure points or ligament pressure points, bone pressure points or muscle pressure points. And I'm going to actually show you these, how you can find these on your own body, or because these are simple pressure points. Now in the art of Dim Ma or Dim Yut, a whole different structure is needed. This deals with the blood and the qi energy, as well as the nerve, and also the lymph glands which exist in the neck, under the arm, in the center of the chest, and in the bladder, to strike these points. So it basically, well, most highly, it deals with the blood and the qi. And we strike these to cause serious injury. Now, if you know the correct time of the day of striking these points, they are absolutely lethal. Now, the reason why it's called the most confidential knowledge is because the Kung Fu masters felt that the student must reach a very high standard in order to have this knowledge passed on to them. Now, the pressure points, the body itself is living because of the soul that resides in our body, but the energy that runs through our blood and the qi down our arms or our legs, and this is why we are living. And it's the blood and the qi energy are the two most vital substance in our body that keeps our body very healthy. And the Dim Yut points exist completely all over the body, but mostly I'm going to introduce you to the Sei Yut points. Now Sei means death points, and this is why in the Chinese martial arts it was regarded as the most highly and most confidential knowledge. Art of Dim Ma, what we need to know is where the most important points are in which to strike. Now, when we say the most important points, we mean points that have where the qi has a beginning or an end. So when we hit a Dim Ma or Dim Yut point, it causes an obstruction in the qi energy or the blood. And this is very important for striking in the art of Dim Ma or Dim Yut.
Now, there are several things that can happen when you strike points, Din Ma points. One of them, you can obviously, basic, feel dizzy. One of them, your mouth opens and cannot talk, almost like a lockjaw. Your eyes stare upwards is another symptom. Comatose, and put yourself in a coma, or stopping a major organ. These are the effects of Din Ma, why it's very dangerous. So now we come to the Sei Yut points. Sei means death or dead, Yut is point. You must know the Sei Yut points if you want your Din Ma or Dim Yut striking to be very effective. In the Jalgar Praying Mantis, we use over 250 different points of the body. And along with these same points, we use the most important points, which is the Sei Yut points. And I'm going to show you a drawing that I put up for you where these Sei Yut points are.
So here's a drawing of the Samsupluk Sei Yut points. The Samsupluk Sei Yut points, most of them exist on the Sapyi Mat, which is known as the 12 energy channels, and each of them has a different particular time of the day, such as the gallbladder between 11 and 1, liver 1 till 3, and lung 3 till 5. Here is the back of the drawing, and the Sei Yut points exist on the back as well.
So you've seen the drawing that I mapped out where the Sei Yut points are. Again, there are known 36, there are the known 36 Sei Yut points of the body, and the Chinese martial arts deal with these specifically. Now, you've got to know the correct time of the day, which to strike the Sei Yut point, in order to be your Din Ma to be most and highly effective. However, you can bypass the time of the day by understanding striking 2 or 3 points elsewhere. But the thing is, the time of the day was relevant in the Chinese martial arts in order to maybe kill or assassinate the person, which is not a nice thing to say. Seen the Sei Yut points on the drawings. Now Sei obviously means death points, and they are the most important points to strike with your Dim Yut striking. If you hit, namely a Hung Yut point, that it means empty point, and it will have little or no effect, unless obviously you use it in conjunction with another point, another Hung Yut point, then it becomes effective. So that's crucial to understand, but solitary, it's no use whatsoever, a Hung Yut point. You must hit the Sei Yut points. I'm also going to show you later of why some of the Dim Yut or Din Ma points on the body, why are they related to the body, and where are they, and why that particular point is a Dim Yut point and why something else is not a Dim Yut point. Yin Yut. Yin means to recognize the Dim Yut or Din Ma point. And this is crucial for Din Ma striking, because you must know the correct angle and the direction in which to strike a particular pressure point or the Din Ma point. If you don't know the correct direction or the angle and direction in which to strike it, it becomes less effective. You can still hit it, but it's not as effective if you knew the correct angle and direction, because then you will need less force. That's why in the art of Din Ma, the correct angle and direction, you can just do this and the person can pass out. So important to understand the Yin Yut. And how you recognize the Yin Yut to start off, you must have the basic of the Chinese Kung Fu. In other words, like as you're doing your forms, you're going through your form and you're aiming, even if you're not practicing against somebody, you're practicing in your mind, going through your mind the particular points that you're going for. And so it becomes natural that when you're in combat to strike that point at an instant's notice. We now come to the ways of developing your fingers for Din Ma striking. There are many different methods, and possibly there could be many different methods from each Kung Fu master from the next. But of the dim ma striking, the most important fingers are the jikji, which can be used like this, and the zhongji, which can be used known as the gimji. We can also use the jikji with the thumb and the longest finger holding the index finger like this. This is a very important dim ma striking. Now I want to mention something very, very important here, because in the Chinese, in the Zhao Ga Prey Mantis system, if you haven't seen the first form, it starts like this. You bring in your elbows, starting with the index finger, then the longest finger, and then you come down to the bottom. Now the reason why we start from 1, 2 is because of dim ma striking. So it's important that we strengthen these two fingers up. I'm going to show you different training methods, but it's most important that you develop the Genji Geng, these two fingers.
This is the method that was developed a long time ago to develop the two fingers known as the Gimji. First you start off with 2 towels, lay down on a piece of wood. After about 2 to 3 months of this training, and then you take one of the towels off to leave 1 towel on a piece of wood. And then start again, controlling your breathing at the same time. Next, then just use the piece of wood. Start off with a soft piece of wood. Using the Gimji, the 2 fingers of the index finger and the longest finger. And then go on to a harder piece of wood. And then finally a stone. The idea was not to try to send the energy beyond the stone. That's the idea, that's the purpose behind it, to penetrate.
The method you just saw was to develop these 2 fingers. There are another method which you can thrust your hands into sand. Now this is a very crude method because you can develop calluses, broken skin, and can lead to sort of like paralysis in the hand, and your nerves will be dead. But this is another method. The next part is called Wa Geng. Now Wa Geng is to develop the fingers totally, the thumb, especially these as known as the Yin Zhao, which is eagle claw. But all the fingers have got to be strengthened. Now the reason why all the fingers have got to be strengthened is because when you grab, say, the pressure points, say on the bicep, say the heart pressure point and the back and these pressure points, I may miss, for instance, the pressure points here with these 2 fingers, which was my initial hope to hit. So these other 2 fingers will make the contact instead. So even if you're out by about 1 inch or 2, the other 2 fingers will seize that pressure point. So it's important that you develop the Wa Geng, and I'm going to show you exercises to develop the Wa Geng.
This is the Wa Geng training to develop the Nalong Jiao, or hard dragon claws. You can use logs on this to train your finger power. Make sure the fingers curl round the log, don't just grip them with the, make sure the joints are curled so all the pressure is on the joints of the fingers. There's many different types of methods of training this, and here is the circle method.
Okay, those 2 methods to develop your fingers and the Jikji and Zhongji is to help you when you're striking your dim ma, when you're striking the dim ma or dim yut points. Now, we have a saying in Zhao Ga Prey Mantis, it goes, Na Long Jiao, Bat San Gong, Qi San Gap, Qi Qi Gong. Na Long Jiao is the hard dragon claws. Na Long Jiao, Bat San Gong means able to pick up a mountain. Na Long Jiao, Bat San Gong, Qi San Gap is the special mantis press-ups that we do, and Qi Qi Gong is to develop the power of the fingers, which is important for dim yue striking. It is also important that you have a frame, or maybe not a dummy to practice your techniques on, but a dummy mapped out with the sei yue points, so you will develop your finger power together along with the yin yue, recognizing the points and the angle and direction. So that's the purpose of having a wooden dummy. The next we come to a different to develop your nan lick.
This is into the lotus position. The idea was to face east in the morning and circulate the vital air to channel it upwards into the eyes. When doing this exercise, you will feel hot hair rising into the head. At this point, you circle the eyes 36 times.
Training was to develop your eyesight in order to have good eyesight, so when you become in fighting, your eyesight is very good, very sharp, and so you can take out a point straight away, having clear eyesight and going straight towards it, the pressure point or dim yue point. The next part is called Hui Ging. Now Hui Ging is a power that you must develop. The nearest I can explain in this in terms of English is, to give an example for instance, is that if you lift up 200 pounds, say, or 100 pounds or whatever, you may do this and strain. But to develop the Hui Ging power, it's totally the opposite way around. You lift up that same amount, but without showing any strain whatsoever on the body. So you can say that if you lift up something like this, you will see the muscles bulging and the blood pumping, and it may look to someone who's looking at it very strong. Yet someone else may lift up that same weight, lift it up, and it looks so relaxed, and it doesn't seem that he's putting any effort. This is because it's superior. So even in self-defense, it's very crucial that when we practice in the martial arts, when we lift up something, we lift it up, in our minds try to say to ourselves, we must be relaxed. Even if we're lifting up something very heavy, I must relax your mind, because relaxation is to do with the mind. It's nothing to do with the muscle or the bones. It's to do with here, the mind. So relax your mind, relax your body with your mind, and lift up that same weight, and practicing this every day. What it enables you to achieve is that when you're in contact, you will be very strong, and yet you will be very relaxed. And this is opposite the way people see it. This is why in the West we have a different conception. We see bulging muscles and naturally think that's strength. But sometimes we must look at the other side as well. Better to be strong and yet so relaxed.
Training the Hui Ging power, it's very important that you try to relax the body and the mind and show no strain whatsoever. If you show any strain when lifting up something that's heavy, then obviously you're doing it wrong. It has a lot to do with the mind. As you see, the method in the picture is wrong. The correct method of practicing the Hui Ging is when you lift up something heavy, try to constantly say to yourself that you must relax, even though you're lifting up something very heavy. With this constant practice, you will be strong even though your body is still at a relaxed state of mind.
introduce now to the pressure points of those dim ma or dim yut points of the body. I'm going to show them on an individual and where they are. And I'm going to show you the herbal remedies if you actually get hit there. You need to know about the Chat Hung, which I mentioned earlier in the Dit Da Jiao video, in the Gao Sun Poultice. And secondly, about the times of the day. Firstly, I'd like to mention that when we say times of the day, if, say, for instance, I hit a pressure point here, and say you might die, say, in 3 days, or you might die in 154 days. What it means to say is that you could die in between that length of time. It doesn't mean to say that on the 154th day you're going to die. It means to say between those days you can die. You could die straight on the spot, or you can die a month or two later. It doesn't mean to say you're going to die on the 154th day. That is ludicrous. You've got to understand that you could die within that amount of time given. Once it's passed, then you're okay, you're safe. So please take note of that. Otherwise it just seems ridiculous. Okay, just before the dim ma, where I show the dim ma points are on an individual and explain different applications of dim ma as well as showing the points, what happens, etc. Generally speaking, in the art of dim ma, we represent that the right side is represented by the qi and the left side is represented by the blood. And I will explain that the reason behind that as well is to do with the yin-yang theory. And I will explain that, as I said, on an individual while explaining the points. But give an example of why dim ma points or say yut points are very important and why on the body. Now, if you look at the forearm, this point here is known as the Gukji pressure point. Now, the Gukji pressure point is found on in the martial artists manual. The Gukji pressure point is here. In an acupuncture manual, it's found on the opposite side of the forearm on the large intestine meridian, large intestine number 11. Now, with the Gukji pressure point in the martial arts is on the inside of the forearm, which is here, and there's a blood energy here. Remember, the qi and the blood are together. The qi, or the hei, or the inner energy, is the commander of the blood. And here is a blood vessel, and that's where the Gukji pressure point is. That's why that is a dim yut point. Again, this same vein is found on the wrist, which is here, which is a very important pressure point. On the here, that blood vessel is found here. That's why that is another important dim yut point. Above, inside the arm, here, where there's a pulse, again, that blood vessel is here. Now we come up to the top here, we find this same vessel here, which is inside the collarbone, known as the Gengjang, or the shoulder well, and that pressure point is just there. The stomach 9 point in the acupuncture, this is where the carotid artery is. And again, you can see that, and it comes from the heart. Also, here down where the hip bone, this is a very important dim yut striking point. Now, obviously, we can't see, but this main blood vessel goes and it comes behind the knee. So behind the knee is a very important dim yut point. We come down to the feet here. This is a very important dim yut point, belongs to the liver meridian, and that's this energy, as you can see, comes down. And this is one example of why these are dim yut points. They're not the only example. I can go into much greater detail here, but this is just an example, a small example that I'm giving of why these are dim yut points, because of the influence it has over the blood as well as the qi energy. Obviously, I will explain later on in much greater detail the yin-yang theory and why if you twist this way on certain points, the energy goes up. If you twist this way, and this is to do with the yin-yang, this way for men, this way for women. Okay, before I go into the art of Dim-Yue and Dim-Ma pressure points, I want to explain to you why a basic pressure point sense, such as doing with the joints and the muscles and the bones and the tendons, etc. Because these are basic pressure points, although relatively speaking, they have nothing to do with the art of Dim-Yue or Dim-Ma. But obviously, I like to explain to you why are they pressure points. Now, if you look at this dimensional figure of the man, you will see that a pressure point is where, for instance, the edge of the muscle is. So if I see the edge of the muscle here on the chest, if I hit that, which is here, then that's going to be a very painful point. So that's why it becomes a pressure point. Now, the same goes for this muscle here. Wherever there's a joining or the edge of the muscle, that becomes a pressure point. And this is how you can understand. So if you can get your own anatomy books and then find out where these pressure points are yourself, you don't need to know anything about internal energy or chi or the pressure points of meridians, etc. If you just want to stick to pressure points like this. Obviously, Dim-Ma is a totally different subject, as I explained. Now, again, is an edge of the muscle, and as we're coming down here, the edge of the muscle again, that also becomes a pressure point. Edge of the muscle here on the outside of the leg, that is also a pressure, can be a pressure point. So really you have large areas here, and also on the back of the man, if you have a look on the back of a calf, for instance, the muscle comes down in two, and the center of that is a pressure point. Same goes with the face. If you look around the eye, there's the muscle that comes around the eye, and the edge of the eye, again, is a pressure point. And that's without knowing anything about being taught about the energy or the times of the day. As I said, it has a totally different, Dim-Ma is totally different entirely. So here's an example of why some pressure points are pressure points. For instance, on the ribs, again, you have the edge of the muscle here, the edge of the muscle here, edge of the muscle was up here. So this is why an example of how you can find your own pressure points. Okay, now we come to the Samsap-Luk Dim-Yue points. Several or many of the points around the body have particular times of the day. And some people say that the central energy source that runs down the body has no particular times of day. But the methods that I've been taught, this central source also has a particular time, has certain times which to hit, so those Dim-Yue points become more potent at a particular time of the day. What I'm going to do is show on an individual the points of the body and the relative medicine. You will also need to know about the small pills that I'm going to show, which is called Cha Herm. These go with the medicine and is a part of the for striking these particular points. Okay, this is Ertan Dervish. Right, on the point here, the top point is called the Bak Woi point. Now, Bak Woi means 100 meetings, and everything in the body meets to this point. Now, when you hit this particular point, you can die within 2 days. And if you hit it very lightly, the person can die in 64 days. Now, what I mean by that is that, relatively speaking, in 2 days kill means that the person can die straight away or within 2 days. Likewise, if I hit it lightly, the person can die with any length of time up to 64 days. If the 64-day period passes, then he's okay. Now, this point here, what actually happens is it takes the energy away from the body and everything comes up. The energy disappears. The ears, for instance, what happens to the ears, the person cannot hear when he's been struck on this particular point. Now, if the person does go into knockout from this point, which is relatively easy, a classic revival point would be to press this. Also on the back here. Now, seeing that you need energy, you go downwards with this point, because obviously it's taken a certain amount of energy from the body, so you need to massage down. Also for hearing, stay where you are. For hearing, you need to massage here, the point here and here. So those 2 points here to help your hearing if you have become ringing in the ears, etc. from this point. This is a highly dangerous point and is one of the samsaplok dim yut points of the body. Most martial artists know about this particular point and it's highly dangerous. In acupuncture, for instance, this point is slightly back, but the martial artists, we use it, this point is called the Barkwoi point and is directly on the point that has been grown over when you are a baby. So this point is very and highly dangerous, and I'm going to show the medicine for that relative point for curing. Chun Gong, 1 part. Gong Wu, 1 part. Chong Yi Ji, 1 part. The next point in the Samsaplok dim yut points is this point here. 2 points either side. It's called the Tai Yung point. It's a very, very dangerous point. Obviously can send you into a coma. Now, and the person can die within 7 days. Within 7 days, that means he can die straight away on the 4th, 5th or 6th day. Up to 7 days he can die. Now, this point, a classic revival point for this one is the top of the head, pressed down. Now the thing is, with this point, it will cause you not to speak. In other words, your mouth comes open, almost like going into a coma. There's another point just at the side of this, which also links to this point, and it's a gallbladder point. And what happens is it can seep into the blood, can seep into the brain. I think this is knowledgeable amongst most martial artists, and it fills in the brain and causing the brain to stop functioning. But this is a highly dangerous point, and it will stop the person from speaking. On the point of contact, you cannot speak if hit properly. Gun Wu, 1 part. Chai Wu, 1 part. The next point is behind the ear. This point is very, very dangerous. Again, as with all the Samsaplok dim yut points, the name of this is called Hoi Ging Yut. Now, it's called Hoi Ging Yut. Obviously, if you look in an acupuncture book, you won't find that name, because a lot of the names that I'm giving are given by martial artists, as in the Jalga Premanta system. So obviously, there will be different names in acupuncture book. But I can tell you this one is triple warmer 17 in acupuncture. And then the thing is at this point, if you hit this straight in, it causes coma, and the person cannot wake up. This is a very and highly most dangerous point. The direction and angle of hitting this point is slightly straight in with with a sort of upward strike at a 45-degree angle. The revival point for this one, if you didn't hit it too hard, obviously, would be the classic one for coma, which is this one here, on top of the head, and the dantin point, which is obviously most people know about the dantin, and slightly lower than the dantin. But as I say, revival points are not they don't absolutely work all the time. You need to know the herbal medicine. And so these points here behind the ear are highly dangerous. Also, I'd like to mention about the dim yut points and dim mat points is that one side of the body, the right side represents the qi or the hei, and the left side represents the hut or the blood. And this is yin, this is yang. Now what this means is that, and I will explain this later on in the video, that if you strike certain ways or certain direction, whether left, right, twist the opposite way, anti-clockwise twist, down and up, you get different effects, whether the qi energy comes up or the blood goes low, etc. But going back to this point, Hoi Ging Yut or Yi Hao Yut is also known. Jin Gai 1 part, Chun Gong 1 part. The next point is here. It's known as the throat well, called Yin Hao Yut. Yut is point. And if this point is hit, okay, the person cannot eat or drink at all and can die in 6 days. Now, this point is very dangerous because there's an energy source that runs in the middle of this body, and this takes out one of the vital airs of the body. Another thing we always talk about in the art of dim mat about the energy that runs around the body, but very few talk about the vital airs. You have 7 different vital airs in the body. One of them resides on the top. And the idea of dim yue is also to destroy or destruct those vital airs. This point here is a classic case of this, and a phoenix eye fist fits perfectly inside there. If you haven't hit him too hard, then obviously the revival point is the dantian point, as well as the just above the solar plexus here, and massage this in a clockwise position. Again, I'll show you a classic thing about this, the essential source, how we can strike across and the energy goes up, and strike to the left and the energy goes down. Hung fa 1 part, gat gung 1 part. The next point is on the sternum, is about 3 inches down, which is here. It's known as Wa Go Yue. And when this point has been hit, you can die within 3 days. Also, you can feel very frightened. When you've hit that, you'll be frightened of everything. This is the symptoms that arise from this point here. And as I say, you die in 3 days. You need to know the appropriate medicine, but the classic revival point, again, a revival point, the dantian point, which is just below the belly button, rub in a, depending how you struck, which I'll go in at later, you rub this way, or either that way, according to the direction you've hit. An example, obviously, only recently, one of my students was hit there and almost passed out, felt dizzy. Also, you can, turn around, massage these points here on the shoulder, again, to help, overcome fear. But these points need the medicine more than just a simple revival point. Learn Gern 1 part, Jack Hoxie Sa 1 part. The next point is on the solar plexus point. Has many names. One is Ta Yik, and also the other is Kao Mai Yut. Yut is for point. If this point is hit, you can die within 3 days, but also you cannot eat. You feel dizzy is a symptom, and secondly, you can bleed internally and it will come out through the mouth. These points, again, is very highly dangerous. Revival points, simple revival points, are on the arm. Press here, this point here, this point here, and this point here. On the lung 5 and 6 is also can be a revival point to stop the blood coming out of the mouth. Or you can also tie a piece of string around the arm while you're doing this. But the most important thing is to revive him is, again, back to this point or here, and the 2 points at the back these are wake-up points, these 2 at the back, gallbladder 20 in acupuncture. Now Ji, 3 parts, Po Wong, 1 part. The next point of the Samsok view is on the back. There are many points that we use on the back, but this one sits in the center of the back. You can hit either side of it as well, but it sits in the middle of the back. Fei Dai Yue is called. It connects to the lungs. If hit in a certain way, it can cause internal injury as well as cause bleeding from the nose. And it's said that within 9 days you can die. And as I said, remember, when I say in 9 days, it means you can die on the 1st day, 2nd, 3rd, or 8th or 9th. Revival point, this one is very good, this one here, for this. Again, massage the 2 points if he has passed out the back. Okay, and press here slightly. Only slightly though, not too hard. Som Bak, 1 part, Bak Bo, 1 part. So you've seen some of the dim yue points that I've shown, including the medicines. I can go on for a long time showing you the medicines for each point, and they exist all over the body, just like a heap of stars. Obviously, we're dealing with the Seiyut points, which means the deaf points. And there's another point, which is here. We have a name for this, which is called Hak Fu Tao Sam. Hak Fu Tao Sam means black tiger steals the heart. It is a killing point. If you hit that point directly, and at a particular time of day, the person will die straight away. But if you only hit it lightly, what actually happens is that you can feel dizzy, you cannot eat, and cannot breathe. So this is a very, very dangerous point. Classic revival point. So again, take the 2 points on the back, lay him on the floor, cross his legs, blocking the energy out, sit him on the floor as well, which is another important to get the energy flowing upwards. Cross his legs, stops the energy going down his legs. But classic revival points would be on the back of the neck, on the top here, and the dantin point here. So we have another point here, which comes under Kimen, which is the liver 14 point just here. Another dangerous point in the art of dim yurt striking. And what actually happens is that causes you go into a coma, as the eyes will stare upwards and you will pass out simply from hitting that point. So what I'm going to actually do now is I'm going to go through various different procedures with these dim yurt points. And also, most of all, I like to mention that with all these dim yurt points and pressure points is that dim mark point is we have a medicine, and it's called Cha Heng. This is the Zhao Ga Tong Long formula for internal injury. So if you've been hit from a dim yurt point, from a dim ma strike, then obviously you need to know this medicine. This medicine is effective on internal injury. It's made in a small light ball, but a long time ago we used to make it in a large ball like this, and I tell you, it tastes, because you have it in a large ball, you have to crush it up and drink it while it's in the water, and it tastes really horrible. But we make them in a small balls now, like this little tiny one, so it's easy to swallow. But this is called Cha Heng, and it consists of many different herbs. That if you suffer from a dim ma strike or dim yurt strike, then you're able to cure that very quickly and efficiently. But as I said, all these points exist all over the body. They are the Seiyut points, which means deaf points. So what I'm going to do now is go through some techniques in the Zhao Ga Pramana system, and then we're going to show you where to hit, etc. And then at the end of it, I'm going to show you particular strikes in the Chinese martial arts that are actually dim yurt points, which probably you can find in your own system as well. Okay, now I'm going to go through a variety of different point strikes, dim yurt point, dim mark strikes. I'm going to do 2 points here. Now these 2 points here, this side is the yang, this side is the yin, the blood side. And what I want to explain is, I mentioned earlier about the 2 fingers. The 2 fingers are very important, or 1 finger strikes are very important, this particular point, this one. Now, when we strike here, most people tell you to go straight in. That's going to do damage, obviously. But if you want the energy to go upwards into the head, when you thrust in, you turn on a clockwise like this. Already, if I do that, you can feel the energy going up into the head. So thrusting in hard and twisting like this, clockwise, can have serious consequences to him. Now on this side, we're doing exactly the same thing but the opposite direction, because we're sending the energy up. If I do it the other way, doing this way, the energy still goes up, but we get an uncomfortable feeling going down. So when you strike the 2 fingers in a twist, or whichever way you want the energy to go, this is the beauty of dim ma. This is why one side is represented by the blood, and one side is represented by the hei, or the qi. And this is a yin-yang theory. It actually takes down many points of the body that I can show that if struck this way, that way, up, down, twist, left or right. This is why we have a technique in Zhao Ga Pramana school, Hu Sa Zheng. Hu Sa Zheng is this technique, and it means to actually
point of contact twist. So let's get this point here. Firstly, we take the two wrist points here, and when we grab, I'm going to pull this towards my hip. I hold it loosely, and when I pull, it really gets on those two pressure points. There's a lung pressure point and heart pressure points on this side. On this side, pump, this side, draining the energy away from him. Stamp on the stomach pressure point on the leg here, taking the energy away from his body. Simultaneously, we come in with the two fingers and then thrust into those pressure points here. But most of all, always try to grab these two pressure points on the wrist, bring it here, bang here, and that will cause him to pass out. Okay, so when you've done a lot of finger training, you can use these two fingers in order to penetrate the points that you need for hitting. You must penetrate a distance of roughly about 3 inches to have the most effect on dim or dim mak points. Mak is the energy. Dim mak, by the way, dim mak does not mean death touch. Dim means to do this, or press, or touch maybe. Mak is the energy. Yu is the point. Again, grabbing the two wrist points, I'm coming here and trip the Hoi King Yu is behind the ear. Grab the two wrist points here, and with the Phoenix Eye Fist, using the Phoenix Eye Fist, which is really a quick version of these two fingers, you will take the Hoi King Yu point down, this point, behind the ear, turn around. Okay, we turn around, grabbing these points, and strike. Once you've done that, you come back up, down to it, and strike inside the arm. So you're going to grab two wrist points, grab these points, strike here, and then come down on these 2 points. So it's a classic case of a dim yu strike. Okay, so the next point I'm going to show is striking for the point here. It is a liver point. And again, the direction, if I was aiming at the nerve, I would go up. But a dim yu strike can be any direction, providing you want the desired effect on the body. In this case, I'm going down with a 2-finger strike here. Again, say for instance, if he punched me, I may hit this point here on top, at the same time strike here into the liver point, and then finally come up to this point here, which is an energy that's source coming just off the heart. This point can be known as heart full a dangerous point. So I'm coming in, I'm going 1 and then 2, move in. 1 and 2. This technique is hitting. Make sure you use it. This backhand is nice to use this backhand because it's very useful in mak striking. So 1, 2, and that's how we strike on those points. Another little symptom of dim yu striking is you can hit somebody, say maybe here or there, and what actually happens is it doesn't feel anything. But guarantee that if you suffer from a dim yu strike, some months later, up to maybe 2 months, if he is not seriously hurt, but he actually feels like his bone has been broken. This is a symptom of dim yu. He just feels like his ribs are cracked, but even though there's no hard strike, this is because the energy in the body is confused, and so therefore the bone becomes weak and feels like it's broken. So punch again, pom, pom, again punch, punch. Okay, strike here, press down, here, and then maybe come around. This is obviously then coming back onto other dim yu points. We have a technique in Jalgal Premanis martial art. It comes like this, and then strike. This technique is called Sai Sao. And usually on a basic stage, we always tell the deflect here. But in actual fact, here is a hard point here. If hit properly, then you can cause the heart to stop. But we're aiming at a 2-point strike here, 3-point strike, sorry. What I'm actually going to do is just here. Now, if he punches like this way, that's fine. Then we just change the angle of our fist like this to fit. If he's punched this way, then obviously we don't need to do that. But what we can do is use the wrist and the most energy to transfer the energy into the body. The wrist has to turn like this. It comes down with the waist. So we're actually going to catch on there. Simultaneously, we're going to catch the point here, this pressure point here, the lung point. So we're going to, if he turns his hand over, you can slide like this. So you're going to come in, strike, and then under here, under this point here, just under the armpit, there's a hard point. It's so dangerous that if you strike this, the person can die within 6 months. It's a 6-month point strike. After 6 months you may be safe, but between the time from the strike until 6 months you can die. Now, so when you strike this point, you come in, I'm going to hit this point, strike, and then I'm going to come under using the kimchi or the jikji jongji to come under, lowering my centre of gravity as I strike, like this. Obviously you can't do that strike because it's so dangerous. 1, 2, but even touching this causes severe pain. The reason why we're holding this one out to numb the arm, we're killing the energy. We can send the energy too much on, or not enough, or going back the opposite way. The next point I'm going to strike is a 4-point strike. And with the leg, here they go. Okay, here, just there, it's very sensitive. And it belongs to the spleen meridian, and as well as there's a liver point here. So what we're going to do, leave it like that so people can see. Again, grabbing the 2 wrist points, striking hard points here, and then with the ball of your foot, the kick there, and it will go down. It's such a dangerous point, this one, and you can pass out from this point here. Just there. Let's face it, you can roll the technique. So what I'm going to do is grab these, strike here, and then roll. And then we can come over and do something else there, but obviously I'm not going to finish it. But just the thing is that some Dimyu points require not so much as hitting, but rather a way of twisting, a way of pulling. An example I can give is we have a technique like this, like this, like this. What that means is that I come under, strike under the armpit, I come back, and with these 2 fingers again, I pull like this, because we can spin open those energy points by doing this, and then come back into the ribs. So like this. So 1, 2, 3. So the same thing with this point, I'm attacking the legs. I'm hitting 1, 2, and then roll. And it just, I'm only touching it. Just it hurts it. So imagine what a good point kick will do. The next Dimma point to strike, we're going to use 6 different points on this particular movement. And here we're going to attack the point on the back called Sekwat Yin. It's 7 ribs down approximately, and it pertains itself to the liver as well as the gallbladder. If you strike this point, it injures the energy of the liver, the yin, and what happens is you can spit blood and gall, and you can die within 10 months. Obviously we need a technique to get to that point. An example could be that if he throws a punch, we grab. When I grab in the pressure
This pertains to the fire, this pertains to the metal. We also grab the heart pressure points here and give a small tug there, pulling him down to this angle. We then hit the gallbladder point here, which is about an inch above the eye, in a twisting action. Simultaneously, we strike this point, which is in line with the liver. If you know where the liver is, it's just here on the right side of the body. And we simultaneously pull him here and then strike him at the same time. And this will cause an instant knockout if done with the correct angle and direction. You've got to twist a wee bit or flow the energy going upwards. And this can easily put someone out very easily. And it's found in our seventh form called Seiban Ging Sa. The next dim mat strike, the importance about obviously twisting. And if you know the correct angle in which to hit a lot of the points, then obviously you can get knockouts quite easily, just with a small tap. It doesn't take much effort. But if you don't get the energy, the right energy behind the technique you're doing, then obviously you're going to lose, you're going to have to hit pretty hard. On the back here, there's a point here. It's bladder 10 here, as well as gallbladder point, which is here. These 2 points, they're like just there. And when you hit this point, what actually happens is you can twist on impact and you can easily get it. It's very effective for a woman who wants to train self-defense, because this is what she actually should train herself to do. I can stimulate these points by actually hitting something first, maybe hitting the side and coming down. But what this point does, you hit this point and the whole body goes numb, especially on the opposite side, this side. If I hit here, this side goes numb. It's a simple technique, and all you need to do, again, I don't like to knock people out, it's not very nice and you can suffer. And also, it's very important to know about Qigong, the herb, namely Qigong, which is on the list, and this cures head pains. If you ever suffer from a knockout and you're still suffering from head pains, Qigong is the one that cures this. So for instance, you may seize the hands, stimulate him here, then come here. And it's so easy, this technique, that just attack. And you can sit down again. Just attack, and he passes out. Again, this side has gone numb. Okay. The next dim mat strike is against the heart point here, this one here. We have a center point here, known as Neiguan, and a point here, which comes under liver 13, called Daiman. We call it Daiman Yun. Okay, and it's a very dangerous point. You can suddenly die from this, as from a result of shock. It literally stops and hurt people right in their tracks. A good technique is if he comes over with a hook punch, because the first 2 techniques is very important. We come here and strike him here, give him a twist. Now this is very important what we're doing here. We're actually twisting it like this. At the same time, simultaneously, I'm hitting here. I then come in with the edge of the palm to press downwards. Simultaneously, the Tai Yuen point, which is here, simultaneously, I hit. And it'll take the energy out completely, and as I say, it can cause a sudden shock to your system. Strike, and then come in. The liver 13 point, by the way, you can find this, and it's where the edge of the ribs are, where the edge of the last rib is, and that's where liver 13 is. Such a small point, and a very highly dangerous point, and it's one of the saving points, which we call the death points of the body. Liver 13, you strike in different ways, such as down or twist, depending on how you want the energy to go, and I'm going to explain that in a few moments. The next part of the Dim Yuen Den Mat is the yin-yang theory of the body. Now, the reason behind these techniques are based on yin-yang theory is in order to set him up for your next strike.
to make it more effective. Now, throughout the whole body, there are many points that we use. But namely, obviously, we always incorporate those 36, the Seiyut points. But on the body, some points have a relationship with the yin-yang. Literally, all the points do. But you must know that which way you twist on certain points, or whether it's left or right, or up or down, gives the desired effect. So when you strike another point on the body, it makes it more easier to hurt, or makes a person more weaker. And I'll give you an example of the yin-yang theory. There's a point here that if you strike towards the right side, towards my right side, in other words, going towards his left, we can send the energy upwards. Now, so therefore, when we strike, the energy goes up. If we strike this way, the energy comes down. It takes nothing, it makes him feel sick if we strike this way. The same goes for this point. If we strike this way, going in this direction, he feels too much energy going upwards. Likewise, if we strike this way, downwards, it makes him feel sick if we do it the other way. We're going towards the right from left on my side, or in other words, coming from this side. So this way and this way for this one. Also, downwards is an effective movement, getting the edge of the palm to strike downwards, sends a rush of energy up to his head. The same goes for the heart point here, which is on the central meridian here. When you strike twisting this way, it can cause him a heart attack by sending too much energy into the heart. Now this is why in the Chinese martial arts we do a lot of twisting. Okay? The same goes for the 2 points here. We have 2 points here. These are very dangerous points. If I just use the Qingji, the Zhongjing Qingji, and twist this way, okay, the energy goes up. This waveform up on the, if it's on his right side, this way, here. Now, if you want to go the energy up on this side, it's anti-clockwise. So from here, when we go in, we literally twist in at the point of impact. It will work straight in as well. But if you twist in as well, you can get his head to literally explode. It's the same thing goes for the points on the bladder. Here, we have 2 points here. We have a technique that comes like this and twists in. And it twists, one going anti-clockwise, the other going clockwise. If I come in, I usually would stimulate his body first by hitting the 2 points here. But in this case, we're talking about the yin-yang theory, so of the Dimyu points. As we come in, we twist, give a slight downward strike, as well as twist it. And the energy which literally go into his bladder, literally it will take what it actually do is stop him from going to the toilet, and he can die from this type of strike. Simply because these 2 points here are very and highly dangerous, and they now belong to the Seiyut points. The Dantin point, again, the Dantin point is 3 inches below the navel, lies 2 inches inside. If I twist this way, the energy goes upwards. If I twist this way, the energy goes down. When you strike the Dantin point, it's a very dangerous point to strike, because if you don't cure in time, it will become very, very difficult to cure later, and have problems with his bowels and everything, and he can die from it. So with this yin-yang theory, what it actually does is it sets up for the next point. On the back, it's totally different. It's the opposite way round for many of the points. Some points require this direction to go up, some points require this direction to go up. The same points in here we have another energy source that runs down here. So with these types of strikes, going down, twist, turning, what it actually helps is when you pull on certain points or twist on certain points, it sets him up for the next point in order to make your Dimyu striking more effective. So this is what this is all about, by twisting one way or the other, and based on the yin-yang theory of the body.
In the art of dim mark striking, it's important to know the materialistic elements, namely fire, metal, wood, water, and earth. Okay. Now, in dim striking, we have many meridians to strike. Mark is the meridian, it's like dim mark. Now, here, for instance, on the inside, we have the heart meridian, the small intestine meridian, etc. This pertains itself to the fire meridian. On top, we have the metal meridian, which is the large intestine of the lung. Now, so therefore, if we hit the fire meridian first and then hit metal, it's more effective. There are other reasons why that happens, but this is one example. But on these meridians, for instance, the liver meridian, which is here, it pertains itself to the wood. The gallbladder meridian that comes up here pertains itself to the wood. On these meridians, as well as the others, there are certain points that pertain itself to another element. So, for instance, we have an earth point here, and we have a water point here, even though they're sitting on the metal and fire meridians. So when we grab earth and then strike water, those points become more effective. You can also grab the source points, which is large intestine number 7. Source points, source. So when we strike, when we hold the earth, we strike the water points, which is 1, 2, and 3, and it becomes more effective. And it's this sort of destruction. You know, the elements that we're doing here, earth over water, because it's destroying it. The same principle applies to another point here. We have a spleen point, which is here, spleen 13, and when we twist, whichever direction I'm going to go, like I said earlier on, about twist in certain directions, that enables you to strike the next point and becomes more effective. So in this pertains itself to the earth. But the point itself is wood. So when we strike this one, and on the back, like one of the salient points, which is a very dangerous one, and I mentioned earlier on about on the anatomy chart about why this is a salient point, is because there's a blood vessel there. But when we strike this point here, and then this point here, it becomes more sensitive. So therefore, when we strike these points here and then come round, and this is why particular Chinese Kung Fu techniques, in Chinese Kung Fu is based on this principle, but in a destructive way, because we're actually using dim yu to destroy or to kill. And this is what the 5 elements is found in the martial arts. An example could be made that, like, fire melts metal, metal cuts wood, wood over earth, earth over water, water douses fire. And this is a general rule, but the most important thing is always remember and practice your techniques, because don't always just rely on this. Make sure you practice and aim in the certain directions on every of the salient points. The next dim mark point striking technique is the pull, and then come down and strike the Dan Tin point and the Ming Mun point, which is on the back. These 2 points are very dangerous. The Ming Mun point is a difficult to get at because it's on the back, but it's called the life air point. And if you hit this point, the whole system, the system of the body goes out. Now, you'll notice this point because the point on the back, it always sweats there. In actual fact, if you paint the whole body, you must always leave that part free, because if you cover that part, then the person can die. Seeing it's a difficult point to get to the back, but what I'm going to do is I'm going to snatch the heart and lung points here, grasp the 2 points here, again, a large intestine and the heart point here, and I'm pulling to the side. I'm then going to proceed to do this technique here, and I'm going to hit the Dan Tin point here and the Ming Mun point on the back. So coming here, like this, and strike it simultaneously. I will proceed to twist this one this way,
going into the, sending the energy upwards and hitting the dantian point. So we come here and strike. Now, with this point, if you hit these 2 points, the person will have trouble with his bowels, and it will get worse if it prolongs over a longer period of time, and it will have problems going to the toilet, etc. So what I've done is I'm going to put up the medicine for this one to cure this particular dim mark strike. Samling, 1 part, Mok Tong, 2 parts. The Ming Mun point is on the back, is a difficult point to get to, as I explained earlier. But one way we can get to it is if I strike into the dantian you see with my hand, we can then proceed to go round and strike with the elbow into the Ming Mun point here. So we come over to quite a bit so you can see. So from here, as you see my hand, I come here, I then strike into the Ming Mun point, which is known as the life air. For revival of this technique, you should massage here, just gently, but if he's knocked out, then bring him round with this, and this one on the top, just slightly, and also the dantian point massage. So this point is a revival technique as well, so it's very important, this one as well as these 2 at the back. So, let me go for that again. He comes in, he sees my hand, I receive him come round, lowering myself as well, because it's very important to lower yourself, don't raise up too much. Come round, and then use your elbow into the Ming Mun point, which is the life air point. The next dim mark strike is a point here. It's called the shoulder well, Geng Zheng. In acupuncture, this point is also found on the back. In actual fact, these 2 points are in line with each other. So if you use a, say, a 2-inch grip, put them there, then you'll find where these points are. What this one does is a limb stopping point. Well, I put it a limb stopping point because if I had hold of these wrist points or whatever, or I had over here, as you go to the punch with this hand, it stops him. So try to, if you punch, it stops him. It seizes him up. So the Geng Zheng point, another way of getting onto the Geng Zheng is with the fingers straight down. Takes out the energy from the lower half as well as the lungs. Have him sit down on the floor if he's knocked out, massage on the back and bring the energy back up. But on this case, we need a technique to get to it. We have a technique that goes like this. And he blocks me, I pull down, and at that point, I come straight out, turn around. I come straight down in with the forearm, straight in, and it literally drops it. Just a tap, and he goes directly down. So this is the Geng Zheng point. The next technique is aimed at 2 pressure points on the leg, and one between the anus and the testicles. It's used with a kicking technique in the Madness system that comes like this, with 1 and 2. The point is, turn this thing now, the point is here, it's a little point, and it's here. And the next point belongs on the central meridian, the meridian that runs up the back, as I said, between the anus and the testicles. To get to this point, we hit the little point here with the heel, whack him here, turn and then kick directly upwards. Okay. Another technique, he kicks like a catch and then kicks straight up. And what this does is it takes the energy out from his top and he can die because it is a safe point.
In this last part of this video, I'm going to show you where the techniques are in the Chinese martial arts for striking dim yut points. A lot of people think that the Chinese martial arts just look fancy, but once they've seen what I'm going to show here, they will realize that it's not a fancy looking art, but rather an effective one. And I'm going to show you where these hidden dim mark strikes are in the Chinese martial arts, from Jiao Ga Prey manners, as well as from other styles of Chinese martial arts as well. Also, I wanted to explain about the Qi energy exercises, which help to develop and send up the energy going down the arm and into this finger here, which is the final episode of Dim Ma striking. And these two fingers are can become very potent and lethal weapons.
This is an energy technique, energy posture technique, with the right leg resting on the butt-oid pressure point of the left leg. This exercise will send the energy upwards, and finally the energy goes upwards into the palms through the pericardium point, which is in the center of the palms. The lotus position was also an energy technique. The reason why the lotus position was formulated was to stop the energy going downwards in order to circulate it upwards. Again, the energy circulates upwards into the arms. There are many different exercises from the lotus position. In the Chinese martial arts, there are many different certain positions of techniques that a lot of people think that just look fancy. But it's not the technique that looks fancy. It's the application that people give it to make it look improbable. But the fact of the matter is that a lot of the fancy looking techniques are actually effective Dim Ma striking techniques. And I'm going to show an example of these Dim Ma striking techniques, which include ones from Jalgar praying mantis, such as this one, going down, coming down like this one, and a whole host of many different positions in the Chinese martial arts. They are not fancy techniques, but very effective ones, and I'm going to show them positions. Okay, right. The first one is found in Jalgar praying mantis. You may have something like this in your own system. On the forearm, there are a pressure point here. It's known as the Guk Ji pressure point. In acupuncture, it's found on the large intestine number 11. But in the martial arts, we also say this is the Guk Ji pressure point. It's right here. What it does is it literally takes out the energy from the lungs. There's a nerve here as well, but it takes out the energy from the lungs. This technique here, what it actually does is we grab the two wrist points, the lung and the heart points. This technique is like this, and I come here and I strike here, twisting. And then proceed to move forward, and with this technique, I aim here, right where the carotid artery is, here. Okay, go down. So you're in that position, remember the two wrist points, don't forget those, and then strike. And that's why this technique, 1, 2, it looks a fancy technique. You may think that this technique is here and going to the groin. But in actual fact, what you're doing is hitting the arm, coming forward, and then striking. And obviously, the harder I do that technique, it's going to come down more faster, and then as I go forward, it's going to add more momentum to my attack. Using this type of technique here, because in the art of Dim Ma striking, it's important to understand this kind of energy, to transfer the energy into that person in order to be effective on Dim Ma striking. The next classical technique found in the Chinese martial arts is this one. Make sure that, you probably know if you do this style that does this, is that they're always on their toes, because that's crucial. Why you're on your toe on the ball of the foot. And the knee is down, this hand is here, and this hand sweeps round. Now always go through your opponent, don't just stop, don't just do this, you go through. You always have to imagine that, because as I explained earlier, that you should have a depth. When you attack with a dim, you demonstrate you should have a depth of at least 3 inches going inwards, using and transferring your energy. Now, some people say this technique is come forward. Some people say this technique is to go down while you're fighting and hit the leg like this, or something you actually go to kick me, and then I block it like this. That's not the application. You may have a better application than this, but I can tell you one is a dim striking technique. This dim striking technique is to hold the two wrist points. This technique is to attack the two wrist points, the liver point, liver 14, as well as the neck point, gallbladder, as well as the intestine point here. Now, how this technique works. Firstly, this technique is important as well. Usually when they do this, before they've done this technique, there's this movement first. Because I'll tell you why this movement's first. And then you come down. So what it is, someone grabs me from the back, grabs me like this, turn around, so you can see. Grab me. This hand proceeds to move forward. Now, so you come here. Okay. So you grab it. I then grab his wrist points, come here. I then proceed to throw him like this, and simultaneously holding the wrist points, slam down, slam my knee onto his liver point. I then proceed this hand, come over, and smack down, turn out. Just turn out. So the liver points, I'm actually coming down. I'm holding the heart and lung points, and then I proceed with a phoenix like this, a hammer hand strike to the neck. This technique is very important. The reason why this is here is not to protect yourself against the kick, but to hold this hand here, so he cannot punch me anyway, and slam down like this. And if I move away, that's what that technique is, and that's why it's like this. And the reason why you come down, you slam down onto the liver, and you come down and strike, stand up. And you'll notice that in most of the Kung Fu styles, they always do this on the right side, never on this one, because the anatomy of the body, the liver point, which is here. And that's why that technique comes down and it strikes, and it drops straight down. And it's important to have the toes like this in order for you to use the knee for striking as well. And that's why that technique is not just a fancy movement, but a very effective one for street situations. If someone grabs you, always practice that one if you do this in your system. The next technique of the classical martial arts is like this, and it comes directly down. Some do this into the cat stance like this, some do it like this. It really doesn't matter how that position, what stance you do it in, because the technique is the importance about this is the actual application of the technique. This technique, again, the 2 points on the wrist, and I'm attacking this point here, the throat well, hoiking you. Now, again, it's an attack from behind. This technique is to go like this, lift up, because it's like that. Usually first, before that's done, there's a slight move forward to open him out. I elbow strike him here, I come over. I then proceed to throw him over like this, holding this hand. This is why this hand comes here, because to hold him, to make sure he don't fly away. Usually the faster he goes, what happens is his legs will swing round. This hand is called needle in the sea in Tai Chi, literally goes to the throat well. And this is why this is another effective technique. So he comes up, you throw, and then straight down. And if it's all done simultaneously, as he lands, you literally strike him here. The next classical technique found is like this, and then like this. And there's an important why I wanted to explain this one, because in the mental system, we have a technique that goes like this, and it actually seizes the chest. Now when I strike this, if I get the right pressure point, test this at home. But you can press there, he feels a very hot sun feeling go down his body and into his legs. Because that is a 5 pressure point attacking, namely what they're known as the 5 seasons, such as summer, midsummer, autumn, spring and winter. And those pressure points there is to actually, that technique of Jalba Primanus is actually to seize those points. And if done properly, it can lead to death. But you must know the exact location of pressure points, and you must have very strong fingers as well. But this is why I want to explain this technique, because the 5 seasons of time also associate themselves down the side of the ribs. Now, I've seen this technique is not done on this side. If I do it on this side, and I come in, all he has to do is bend his elbow, and he blocks me. But this is done on the left side of the body. Now, try to understand that we do certain things on the left and certain things on the right. Now, this technique, the reason why this hand's here, like this, is very simple again. If I just lift up like this, he might just let go. Let go. So pull your hand back or whatever. See? And then I've lost his grip. Well, what I do with this hand, he can't let go because I have opened his thumb. I then proceed to seize the 2 pressure points, and then I turn this technique, this direction, because it does come like this. Because if I don't turn this, if I just leave it like this, he can bend his elbow. But if I turn it this way, so you grab him, if I turn it, you can't bend his elbow downwards. So that's why it's important to twist this arm right the way down, like this. So we grab them 2 points and striking the tips of the fingers, penetrate the pressure point, the diminutive point of the heart, going upwards at the same time using the heel of your palm to strike. And it's done on the left side, and it's only in Tai Chi. This technique is found in Tai Chi, and it's only done on one side, directly after needling the seat. And the reason why, because it literally attacks the heart side, and that's a very classical technique found in the Chinese martial arts. The next pressure point technique, classical techniques, and the location of the diminutive points to attack the mark points, is a technique that goes like this, and it comes over like this, and then comes to here like this, and then 1, 2, 3. Now, it's not to be on guard. I've seen someone say that this is an on guard position. It's actually attacking 2 pressure points, 3 pressure points on the arm, and then following through with a pressure point which leads up from those 2 points that I'm going to show. Now, we come around here. Firstly, if someone grabs your arm, this technique will come over like this, because that's that technique. It goes from here like this. Again, using the same principle with this hand, so he doesn't let go. I then bring him to here, grab the 2 points, come around here now. Grab the 2 points here, and then slam down on the pressure point at the back. Now the next technique goes 1, 2, because the reason why that's got like this is because he can heel kick you. You can heel back kick to my point. So to prevent that, we go 1, 2, so he can't. Simultaneously, I then proceed to punch here, which is in front of the ear. It's known as the yimen, the ear, the door of the ear. It's in front of the ear, this point here. And it lifts off to these points. So I'm actually in this position, I'm walking down, okay, to here. I go 1, 2, and then I punch directly there. And it's to grab the 2 wrist points, the point here, which belongs on the triple warmer point in the meridian, and then strike again triple warmer point, which is in front of the ear. And that's why that technique, this comes like that and it opens here, because that represents grab here, there. And that's the exact position for that, and then strike. Obviously, as you move more faster and harder, the technique becomes more effective. The next technique technique. It's often done slow, but it comes like this. Again, it's a dim strike, a dim mark strike. There's more than one striking in that application. There's also an elbow strike. Also, it's very important to understand that you can't fight slow in a fight. It's impossible. But the reason why it's done slow is in order to transmit your energy. So when you hit dim strike, you're very relaxed. Because you've got to be very relaxed when you hit a dim strike. The more tense you are, the less transfer of energy you get into the other person. But I'm going to show you what this application is for. And obviously, I don't want to, disagree with any person's other application. This is personally the application that I've known and been taught. But just inside here, there's a pressure point. Now, the reason why this technique is like this is to stimulate first the pressure point here by doing this. If you don't get that, you can sweep them off balance, because the first two movements will be 1, 2, because it goes 1, 2, 3. So I'll just demonstrate the first movement. I'm here, I sweep him off, I then proceed to do this, so which is this one. The next technique, obviously, is that here, obviously, it's no good palming him from out there. You can get as much power just from here. You don't need to come like this, but there's a reason why this hand's here. It's to, again, to stimulate 1 point, 2 point, the liver point, which is on the back. If he throws a punch, I then proceed to block simultaneously with the elbow. With the elbow, I will then strike his heart, because it goes from here like this. This is a heart point. And now I'm setting him up for my initial attack. So I come here, I've gone 1 point, 2 point, if he's punched me, I've knocked this point, I've elbowed him, I then proceed to move forward, stimulating the liver point, which is on the ribs, liver 13, and then I finally use my next technique, which is directly on the heart. And that's why that technique has gone 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And it's important to notice that this is done twice on the right side or once on the left. And this means, because the heart is on this side, so when we do that technique, I come here, if he goes to throw, I move forward, elbow striking, simultaneously knee strike into the liver forward. And the tips of the toes is very important as well. The reason why it's like this, if I have a flat foot, I can't reach. Tips of the toes means I can reach that point. And then I proceed to strike this point, the point here, straight in, and then bang. And that's why that hand sweeps round. And that's why that's, again, a very effective technique. If you use it just like this, if you just use it like this, then obviously it's going to block. There's no way that I can use that point just like that. That way is a good explanation. How I've explained it is a very good explanation. The next technique is found in Jogar Fragmentus. It's most likely found in other systems as well. And as a fact, I know somebody that was doing the martial art for 10 years and he had the technique that I'm going to show. He never knew what it was for until I explained it to him. It's a very devastating technique. It's against the 2 pressure points of the head, namely the Doi Hao, which is on the back of the head, and the Mei San, which is directly on the 3rd eye point, which is here. The technique in Jogar Fragmentus goes like this, and like this. Now, this technique is such a devastating technique that it should never be attempted. All the dim martial arts should never be attempted at all because they are highly dangerous. But suppose someone was here, I may see his hands, I may do lots of things. But this technique is to move in, to strike, to bring the hand round the back, and hit this point here, simultaneously, like this. Obviously in the next technique I can go in further, but I want to talk about this one. We hit the Doi Hao point here, and the Mei San point, which is here on the forehead. It's such a deadly technique that just touching it causes the person to sit down. Okay, causes the person to pass out very easily, and that was just a touch. So imagine if I'd done that full whack, which I've no need to do, because obviously I know these techniques are very dangerous. You okay? I stand up. So you see these techniques, and classical Chinese techniques, in Zhao Gao Prey Mantis as well as other systems, are very dangerous. And even though they seem fancy, it's only because the wrong application is applied. Once the correct application is applied, then the whole system, whatever style you do, will blossom. And thank you for seeing this video. This is Grandmaster Yip Soi performing in what is known as Wafu. Wafu is a spiritual healing. He's been practicing this now for the past 60 years, and he learned from his grandfather who lived in the Shaolin Temple. No medicine is used this, only mantras, and the two fingers, known as the Gimji, and a brush. That's Lao Soi, who is the great grandmaster of Zhao Gao Prey Mantis. This Wafu gets rid of evil wind. And my students that are trained in Hong Kong as well. This is Reno St. Angelo, Paul Brennan and Reno St. Angelo doing the Danzhong. My other student, Michael Franklin. My Sifu. This is Gary Cassidy and Reno St. Angelo training Dojong.